life and regrets, right? I think that some of us might already have, maybe have had some regrets about our past. And, like I said, we've got to be able to move forward and understand what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. And, look at some of those regrets as learning lessons that, we shouldn't pass up opportunities any further. But I saw this great article. It was on Jeff Bezos. He is the founder and creator of Amazon.com or Amazon, right? So it was amazing because I was like, it really opened up my eyes to really look and, really understand where he came from. So I had to imagine myself. So in 1994, Jeff Bezos was 30, and he was actually a hedge fund manager in New York. And then he created, and he was making a lot of good money, but realized that, online, has started to create, this growth, I think it was like 2,300% that the internet was growing, right? So it was important there. So what he decided to do was that really, he had this idea of creating an online bookstore, an internet bookstore, and, really creating that. So he was able to really become, what Amazon is today. It started out as an idea of a bookstore, and now it's a, one size fits all. You can buy almost anything on Amazon these days. So, your food, all that good stuff. So it's a great business that he ran. But, it was one of those things. It was interesting to see that, a lot of the, his thing was a lot of the decisions he made were not, really business decisions, and they weren't major business decisions. But I think, a big thing that what he said was, he had to really sit back and he thought, the way his life was, would he go on to regret, not doing something in, 50 years. So when he was 80 years old, would he look back at certain things and say, man, I really missed my opportunity and I would regret that. And, that's how he really got it started in, on Amazon and all of that. And it's interesting to see that because, I think that's one of the biggest things that happens in life is as we get older, and we get to an older age, a lot of people just end up regretting a lot of their life. Now, when I look at regrets and all of those things, a lot of the things that hold us back from, from doing things that we really want or think of is fear, right? And, we don't go forward because of fear, because we're feared of being judged. We're feared, things are going to fail. We're fearful of a lot of things. And I look back, I've had some moments myself where I was like, if I don't do this, will I regret this for the rest of my life? And I try my best to do things that I think are going to be beneficial, and they're scary as hell, right? I think some of us go through life and we're like, man, this is going to be scary. And we jump and we're like, where are we going to land? Are we going to land on our feet, or are we going to fall on our back or whatnot? One of my favorite, motivational speakers is Les Brown. And I love, the saying that he says is, if you're going to, fall on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. And that's how I kind of look at life, and that's how I approach it is, sometimes we're going to get knocked down, right? And there are going to be a lot of scary things, but, is that fear, that holds you back? Is that something that's really going to hurt you in the long run? Are you going to be set up for success, with the things that you want to do, or are you going to stop yourself from doing these great things, right? You've got to be able to live within yourself. And really, when you make decisions, I think a lot of us start to look at our lives. And for me, I'm a big analyzer, right? So I start to look at and the, I guess, analytical sense, or, what's the word I'm looking for? But, just I start to look at things, from a sense of, logical sense. That's what I was looking for. So from a logical sense, does this make sense? Does this make sense? So we start to look at things logically. And I think sometimes we forget to really listen to our hearts. When I started, Breathe Motivation, it was created from my heart. It wasn't created from my mind. I was so afraid of being in front of people and knowing where you have been and, understanding where you're at. And I think I could have been so fearful, and I was fearful, right? I didn't want to be, when I started Breathe Motivation, it was a blog, and, I don't think I enjoyed writing when I was in, high school or whatever, but I really found a love for it, through a college course actually. So I started writing and I was like, what if people don't like it, or however these things look? So I would always question myself. But what the thing that really pushed me was, if I don't do this now, will I regret it later? Right? So I look at things that I start and I do, and I say, do I really want this? Are there things that I want out of this? Or what is my intent of doing this? Is it just to do it because I wanted, I just wanted it on my like a little check sheet, right? I try not to do things like that. And I think some of us do that. And I've done that before, right? We just want to be able to check mark and say, hey, I had a blog or whatnot. But, that blog started to, kind of, it wasn't, the best, and it wasn't, the best website and all these things, but, I did it, right? And I started to do it. And then, I saw that I was like, what? I love doing the blog and I'm just not doing it as consistent. So then the idea of the podcast came up. And then I've been doing this podcast for 132 days straight. So it's interesting to see where these things kind of evolve. But at the end of the day, if I didn't do any of this and create Breathe Motivation, I would regret it in the long run, because I'm not, I'm not doing, for some of these careers that I've had or these jobs that I've had, I don't feel fulfilled in that idea of what I was doing, right? I can teach sales. I love sales and I love the psychology of sales. And there's a lot of great things that I enjoy doing with it, but I just don't feel that I can make that impact or make that change that I want to, like I can with a podcast or with Breathe Motivation, right? But I knew if I didn't take the risk in putting myself out there, being vulnerable, I would live on to regret it, right? and look back at, 80 years old, if hopefully I make it to 80 years old. But when I look at that, would I regret those things that, really, would I be upset that I didn't do it, right? So I had to follow my heart. I have to follow my heart in the things that I do on a day-to-day basis. And, I think sometimes logically, it's important for us to look logically and understand that. But I think logical thinking creates fear, because in our minds and our brains want us to be safe. And, it's going to point us in the safest direction. And it's the same way when we start to do things, we want to take the path of least resistance, because, we want to be able to have the easiest route towards things. But we've got to be able to face those fears. We've got to be able to, listen to our hearts and listen to, kind of the intuition or whatnot, or however you want to look at it. You've got to be able to listen to your heart and understand that, if you want something bad enough, go and get it. And just know, at any point, you could get your butt kicked, you could fail, you could, this is how I look at things, right? I used to be so afraid of doing things that I wouldn't do them because I was so afraid of failure. But I had to tell myself, well, what if I'm successful in what I'm doing, right? So we start to look at the fear, and the fear starts to talk to us in our mind and say, well, hey, hold on a second. If you do this, you might be judged by your friends and family, right? And I had to tell myself, this isn't meant for my friends and family. This is, and it could be, I could help my friends and family, but I have to listen to myself and understand that this is what I want, because friends and family, they'll try to talk you out of doing anything just as much as you try to talk yourself out of things, right? Because they want you to be safe. They don't mean it. A lot of people don't mean it from a bad place, but they'll push and tell you, hey, I don't think that's the best move. I look at, like school or, quitting, I was watching a video on somebody that, had quit school to start a business, and everybody told them, no, you don't do that, because they wanted them to be safe. But that person, listened to his heart and said, this is my opportunity. And if I waited for this opportunity, later on down the road, what if it never, what if this was the right time? I was watching a video about Facebook, and, I forgot the guy's name, but he was actually the guy that actually gave them like a loan or, an investment into Facebook. I think it was $500,000. And, he was like, if he had decided, if Mark Zuckerberg had decided to start Facebook after he had gotten out of school or whatever that looked like, it would have been too late. That would have been 2006, 2007, and Facebook might not be what it is today. So there's a lot of things that go into the ideas of regret. And, do you think Mark Zuckerberg would have regretted not following his passion and finding his purpose and doing what he's doing, right? You look at it now and it would have been a bad idea. So stop fearing, the failure. Stop fearing the things that should happen, right? I used to get so caught up in that thought process and the what ifs, right? That's what created the anxiety. That's what created my panic attacks, were the what ifs. What if this happens? Then what would happen? And then it would just continue on this path. And I was like, man, I've got to get past this. And I've got to be able to live in the present, enjoy what I'm doing, and follow my heart and follow my desires from my heart, right? And get into things for the right reasons. And, don't look back. Don't let fear stop me. And I want you guys to understand that, fear should not stop you either. And you should be able to live within your heart. And, no matter what anybody says, it's great to listen to people and, kind of hear their opinions. But at the end of the day, your opinion is the one that matters. And you've got to be able to take the risks and to take the opportunities, right? With big risks come the opportunity for big rewards. And I'm not saying risk away your future and your savings and all of that stuff, because you don't have to. But you've got to be able to take action and, look down at, and, I always tell you guys to stay in the present, but, I had to also, think the same way. When I saw that article, I was like, that's brilliant, with Jeff Bezos. Hey, at 80 years old, would I regret not doing a certain thing? And if it is that, then I've got to follow my dream. I've got to follow my goals. I've got to follow my passion, and I've got to, kind of work backwards. How do I get to this point of creating a great business, and how do I include this into great things?